just like the old auctioneer said, when it's bad weather, only serious bidders show up. And I'd like to compliment you all for being here this morning. Is Reverend Traw present? Let's all bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, bless this group this morning, and bless all the veterans that we honor. And Lord, be with all of those who travel, who have to travel home. Keep them safe. Be with this nation, Lord. Make it strong, and make it happy, and make it a good place to live. We ask these things in your precious holy name. Amen. The first thing on the program this morning is we'll have a presentation of the first flag to fly over the Veterans Memorial by the DAR. So I'd like to introduce Mrs. Beverly Miller.
Distinguished guests, veterans, Memorial Committee, ladies and gentlemen. We are, as members of Coffee Chief Chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution, meet on this occasion to present the flag to the Veterans Memorial Committee. As we dedicate this wall to all veterans of Allen County who by their dedication fought and gave their lives so that we might all enjoy the privileges of freedom. To you, the Veterans Memorial Committee, we present this flag of the United States of America. May it ever wave and have the honor to bestowed upon it as a symbol of the freedom of our nation.
I would like to introduce His Honor, the Mayor of Iola, John McCrae, to welcome you all.
Thank you, Dennis. On behalf of the City of Iola, I do welcome all of the visiting commissioners and mayors and veterans, and I want to thank the Veterans Committee for the wonderful job that they've done putting together this memorial. There are a lot of neat things happening in our community and in our county. Would like to, if I might, thank one more veteran. My dad passed away in the last year. He was a veteran of World War II, went out of high school on one day and into the Army on the next, and spent the next 3 years flying over Germany. Did it very quietly, never talked about it like most veterans. I appreciate it. I never said thank you to him. Of course, he never gave us a chance, but he just came home and went about being an American. Woodrow Wilson declared Armistice Day in 1919. 1954, it was changed to Veterans Day to honor all Americans who served during wartime. It's a wonderful turnout. I love patriotism, love America, love Iola. Thank you very much for coming.
We're running a little long on time, so I'm going to have to talk here a little bit because we have a flyover schedule. I'm sure all of you know by some F-16s. They're not due here until 1100. That's 11 o'clock to civilians. These planes are coming from Oklahoma. They're from the Oklahoma Air National Guard at Tulsa, and from the 138th Fighter Group, Oklahoma Air National Guard. The time they're flying over is the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And for you history buffs, you know that says armistice. when the planes fly over, we're going to have a band, and they're all standing right over here by the big Ryder truck, and they're going to play our national anthem, and Lloyd Houck is going to sing along with them, and the flag, the first flag to be flown over the memorial, will start up slowly behind me. Later on in the proceedings today, we'll have some vintage aircraft from the Combat Air Museum at Topeka. One will be a T-6 Texan, and one will be a T-28 Trojan. We've had a lot of support on this dream that we've had. We've had a lot of support from the people of Allen County, and without which this dream would not have been possible. I can look out right now and see faces of people who donated money or time or gave encouragement to the committee. And there's been something all along that small town in this effort. People are not afraid to get involved, and people see a good thing when they see it. We're here to thank the veterans. I've thanked the people for supporting it. Now I'd like to support the veterans. From the first name over here on the first plate of the pre-Civil War to the last name over here on the present era. And in between those names is a lot of dedication, is a lot of courage, heroism, and a lot of sacrifice. For the veterans who paid the supreme sacrifice and who now rest on our land and on foreign soil, to those who rest beneath the waves, we say thank you. To those who are missing in action, wherever and however they are, we say thank you. To those who were wounded, whose bodies were insulted by the cruel weapons of war, we say thank you. And to those who dedicated their time, we say thank you. And to those who stayed home and wept and worried, we say thank you. The jets are due over in about a minute, so I want you to reflect between now and then on the veterans. Some of you among us here are veterans. Some of you love a veteran. Some of you know a veteran. Think about them.
fought so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
We will now have the gun salute and firing squad, and this is from the American Legion at Moran and from the veterans of foreign wars from La Harpe. The 42 black balloons we just released were in honor of the 42 missing in action people from the state of Kansas, in Korea, and Southeast Asia. This morning I'd like to introduce you some of the people who are up here with me. I would like to introduce Thomas Wood, who's chairman of the Allen County Commissioners. Gene Barber, who's our newest commissioner. Okay, thank you, Gene. And Dick Wertz, who's a member of the commission. And we would like to remember today a commissioner who was a commissioner when we commenced this project, Robert Husky. And we thank a lot of Robert. He gave us a lot of encouragement on this. And we would like to say at this time, thank you to Robert Husky. Now, I don't know if all the mayors are here. They told me they were coming, and I'm going to introduce them. So if you're out in the crowd, just make yourself known. I'd like to introduce first the mayor of Bassett, Darrell Buss. Thank you, Darrell. The mayor of Ellsmore, James Nelson. Is James here? The mayor of Gas City, Mark Wilson. Is Mark here this morning? The mayor of Humboldt, Larry Mannion. The mayor of La Harpe, Lloyd Turner. Is Lloyd here this morning? The mayor of Mildred, Michael Bedke. Mayor of Moran, Jerry Wallace. And the mayor of Savinburg, Carmen Cooley. The reason we invited all the mayors is to represent all of the people of Allen County, because this truly is an Allen County memorial. At this time, just a minute, I want to, you hear anything?
Okay, I'll let them know. Thanks a lot. Bye. About 8 minutes. Okay?
About 8 minutes, okay. All right. General Nichols, I don't want you up here yet because we only got 8 minutes, so I'm going to talk it over. We have the aircraft that I told you about coming in from Topeka, and they're going to be here in about 8 minutes. The next thing on the program is the introduction of Senator Talkington here, who's going to introduce our main speaker this morning. I might tell you some of the feelings I had as I engraved the names on these. I noticed the difference in names from pre-World War I. We had a lot of Jeremiahs, had a lot of Jaspers. And then we went to Bill, and William, and Charlie in the Second World War, First World War. And then I noticed Brian's made their way into our mainstream in Korea, Vietnam, Brian's, Joshua's. And then when we got over to the present era, and whether you know it or not, there's some people on this present era board who are currently on active duty right now. And we welcome them on that board. And that's the reason we don't have too many. We know there's more somewhere. And if you've got a loved one who's on active duty right now, we would sure like to have them on the board. At this time, I would like to introduce the committee who is responsible for this, and they're spread all out doing jobs. We have a few up here. At this time, I would like whoever is on the committee and up here to stand up, and if you're out here, raise your hand so people can see you. These people have worked very hard, and believe it or not, we're still pretty good friends. We have, just as a time filler here, the band said that they would play us some military music while we're waiting on these planes to come over from Topeka, so take it away, Maestro. I think the planes are supposed to turn around and come back over, but they were supposed to come from the west too. So. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you a member of Allen County and Iola to introduce our speaker for today. And everyone, I think, knows Senator Bob Talkington.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As Dennis said, to be out here on this day is quite an accomplishment to have this many people here. It is indeed a pleasure for me today to have the honor of introducing our speaker. To have such a distinguished native Iolan and Allen Countyan to be here today certainly is an honor for this group and the committee that has put this whole event and this wall together. Maybe they're coming back. That does bring back memories. As many as you know, you might know, I was born and raised in Texas. And once that T-6 Texan, one of them landed in our cotton field one day and came to our house to call for help. But it is indeed a pleasure to have with us our speaker today. General Nickel was born and raised here in Allen County. He attended Iola High School, graduated there. Somehow we let him slip away to our neighboring state of Oklahoma to OSU to get his master's degree, or his bachelor's degree of science. He later got a master's degree from the University of Southern California. He started his career in the Air Force as a second lieutenant in 1955 and went through the ranks and retired as a lieutenant general in 1988. Since his retirement, he serves as an independent national security consultant. I think that tells you quite a bit about him right there. To be picked to be a consultant for national security tells you that people in many high places have the trust in him to help advise on our national security. While he was in the Air Force, he had many, many commands. His last command before his retirement, he was commander of the Alaskan Theater, including the Alaskan NORAD defense system. Overall, he had command of that whole area of the Alaska Command for our national defense. As many of you know, during the time he was there, the Cold War was still there, and any attack that might have come from Russia would have come probably over the top and over Alaska. So you can see the importance of the job that he held at that time. I'd just like to mention that obviously to achieve the rank of Lieutenant General, to achieve the commands that he had, certainly speaks well of him. But he not only had lots of command authority and responsibility placed on him, he was decorated and received many, many decorations and service awards. And one of them I can tell you about, since I'm familiar with it, is the Good Conduct Medal, and I know all you veterans here today know about that one. But that is just one of many. And so we're going to have another one. They can fly over as often as they want while I'm speaking, but when the general gets up here, maybe they'll be gone. But during his career, he has been awarded the Distinguished Service Medal with 1 Oakley Cluster. That's one of the highest awards that our nation can give as a military award. He has received a Silver Star. In fact, many of these are some of the highest awards that our nation will give. A Silver Star, the Legion of Merit with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters, the Distinguished Flying Cross with 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, the Meritorious Service Medal with 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, the Air Medal with 16 Oak Leaf Clusters, the Air Force Commendation Medal with 1 Oak Leaf cluster, and of course a Presidential Unit Citation, and as I said, the Good Conduct Medal. That's just a few of the many other service awards that he received, including from the Republic of Vietnam, the Gallantry Cross with Palm, of course the Vietnam Campaign Medal, and the Inter-America Defense Board Medal. General Nichols, of course, married his wife, Janice, who is from Chanute. They have 3 children and they have 5 grandchildren. And as he stated, he has numerous cousins and uncles and aunts still living in Allen County and in this area. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our speaker today, Lieutenant General David Nichols.
Thank you, Senator Dennis, members of the committee, citizens of Allen County, friends, family. I haven't found Aunt Sarah yet. Where's Aunt Sarah? Somebody show me Aunt Sarah. Where are you, Aunt Sarah? Okay. Good. I had to make sure. She made me eat my spinach. I didn't like it then, but I do now. How many veterans, do we have any veterans here before World War II? I didn't think so. How many veterans of World War II? Please raise your hands so we can see. Okay, thank you. Veterans of the Korean War, Vietnam, Desert Storm. Okay, let's give them all a big hand. Is Mr. Dale Kreitz here today? I thought he would be right. There he is. Mr. Kreitz, how you doing? It's not Dale to me, it's Mr. Kreitz. Mr. Kreitz gave me my first uniform, as he gave a lot of other men and women here their first uniform. He also was the first person to teach you how to stand at attention, to left face and right face and about face and march. And I tell you, by the time I got to the Air Force, that marching stuff was a piece of cake because I'd been taught by a master. Thank you, Mr. Kreitz. He's affected the lives of many, many people in this area. Since he gave me my first uniform, I thought I would show mine. It's been a long time since I've been wearing it. I'm glad to have the opportunity here so I could put it on. It's a little tight, but it's fun wearing it. How many of you remember the old courthouse? Do you miss the old courthouse? Yes. I miss it too. I miss it a lot. You know, a while ago we heard one part of the clock strike 11. But for those of you that didn't get to see the old courthouse, it was a brick building that sat right in the middle of the courtyard. And its best feature was the tower that held the clock. And that clock faced 4 directions, up North Street, East Street, South Street, and West Street. And if that clock was still here, we would have been able to see that it was 11 o'clock. And as we were told earlier, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and that's when the guns fell silent in Europe 77 years ago. And it was called armistice. And as we learned a year later, President Wilson designated that as Armistice Day for us to honor all those vets. And the country did honor them. And I can't remember any place where they were honored better than right here in Allen County. And the celebrations that I remember are after World War II, and it was the biggest day around. It was clearly the biggest day in Iowa. There were bands. Mr. Kreitz could tell us how many bands were here, but there were lots of bands, lots of floats, a lot of military units, a lot of military equipment, saddle clubs, you name it. It all happened right here, and the town must have grown to twice its size during that day. But in those days, we were celebrating more than armistice days, the veterans of World War I, we were celebrating the end of World War II and the veterans that were there, and then later the veterans of Korea. And I guess that was the case throughout the country, because in 1954, as we were told, it was changed to Veterans Day to honor our veterans of all the wars. Now, when I got here yesterday, I came over to the memorial because I wanted to have a chance to see it with a little quiet and time to study it. I spent about a half hour. I didn't last as long as I had intended because I didn't dress right. That was dumb on my part, because this is Kansas, isn't it? I should have known to bring a swimming suit and some warm clothes. I forgot both. But I was really impressed. It has a lot of dignity, a lot of class. And it's divided into areas, as we'll see when it opens up. And there's an area that designates before World War I, World War I, World War II, Korea, and so on. And it'll be a living memorial. Hopefully we don't add a lot of names to it, though. So I suspect we go back, as far as Allen County is concerned, to the Civil War, because we were born just before the Civil War. And when I think about the Civil War, the veteran that comes to my mind is a great-grandfather. Hiram Nichols is a very young man. He served at Gettysburg. He was wounded there, taken prisoner by Lee's forces, and served out the rest of the war in prison at Andersonville. I guess the next person that I would remember would be our own General Funkston. And I'm glad to see that we're paying more honor to General Funkston than we did when I was growing up. The only thing I knew about General Funkston when I was here is that there was a house on your way to Colony on the right-hand side of the road. There was a boyhood home with General Funkston. I didn't know who General Funkston was. And he's a great man. He's a hero in every sense of the word. And I'm glad to see that he's being honored now in a better tradition. I guess the next veterans I would think about are go to World War I. I wasn't living during this period, but history books and family and stuff would tell me. But the person I think about is a grandfather, Lon Coble, my mother's dad. And I'm proud to say that his name is on this memorial. But I also think about Gene Cook. He influenced my life a lot. Cook's Drug Store used to be over here where the Funkston home was. A lot of young men and women worked for him, and those that didn't, others came in and out and were influenced by it. He was a difficult man to work for, but that was good. It affected the lives of people like Dee Munger, Richard Grasty, Max Willis, and a number of others. He also had two sons that served in World War II. One came home and one didn't. I can remember World War II pretty well because I was old enough to follow it through the Register and the Kansas City Star and the newsreels and the theater. And we all should remember it because for the last few years we've been reminded of that war, and particularly the last year we celebrated the victory in World War II. And I tell you, I can remember one hot day in August 50 years ago very well. I spent much of the afternoon at the swimming pool. And what I remember was being on the tower, the 25-foot diving board. And I wasn't wet because I'd been standing there for a long time trying to get nerve to dive off. I jumped off a lot of times, but I had never dove. And I had promised myself that I was going to dive that day. Finally, I got my nerve together and I stepped forward and I went off. But to my disappointment, it was another jump. So disgusted with myself, I swam out of the pool, changed, and I was heading home. And is the old lumber yard still up here? Okay, as I was heading home and I was approaching the lumber yard, fire sirens started to go off. And that was a little bit unusual because we didn't have that many fires, but what really made it unusual is I didn't see the fire trucks coming out of the firehouse, and the sirens kept going. And then later on, the cement plant whistle started blowing. And it wasn't any one of those times of day that it blew to tell you whether it was time to go to work or have lunch or go home. I finally figured out they were trying to tell all of us that World War II was over, that the Japanese had surrendered. And when I realized that, I turned around and ran back to the pool as hard as my little legs would take me, and as people like Harvey Rogers will tell you, that's not very fast. But I got there and I changed my clothes, went up that tower, and I dove off, swam out to the side of the pool, got out, and ran home, which was at Kimberly Apartments those times. But the reason for all that excitement is my daddy was coming home. And so was Dale Mitchell's brothers, and all these other names that you'll see up here. Unfortunately, not all of them. Some of them didn't come home. Some of them paid the ultimate price. But you know, that reminds me, there's another crowd that really should be paid tribute to, and we don't very often in this country, but that's the families of those that served. Particularly the mothers that had young children during that time, and the husbands were off serving. Trying to be a mother and a father and a breadwinner because the government didn't send much money. And my mother was one of those ladies, and I'm proud of what she did and all those others like her. So we don't want to forget them. Also, that's right, let's give a big hand. You know, there's something else. We used to, in that time, put stars in the windows on flags if you had somebody in your family serving. I think they were blue stars. But all too often, the color would change if you received a telegram telling you that person wasn't coming home. You know, I remember Korea maybe a little bit better because I was approaching draft age then. But I guess what I remember most are there were a lot of veterans from Korea in junior college with us. It was junior college instead of the community college then. But the people that I really remember are those that didn't wait for the draft, those classmates of mine that went early to serve. People like Jack Runner, Elizabeth Martin, Larry Patterson, and so on. Vietnam was more personal to me. Of course, I knew a lot of people there. But the veterans I think about, when I think about Vietnam, I think most of us saw them in 1973 when they were being released as prisoners of war and coming back to the hospitals in the Philippines. And we saw them get off those airplanes in their uniforms with their new ranks, standing tall and proudly. And I knew most of those, not most of them, but a lot of them. And a lot of them had been prisoners for 6 and 7 years and had undergone torture and all other types of horror. But yet they came home standing tall, paying tribute to our country. And I was never prouder to be American than during those days. Desert Storm, I was out of the Air Force at that time, but a lot of the people that I knew were involved in it. And I think of them, but the veteran I think the most of at that time is my sister's son, J.D. McNett, and I'm proud to say that his name is on this wall as well. Well, I've mentioned to you people that I think about when I think of veterans, but you all have your own, and I'm hoping that through your mind you were thinking about those veterans that are special to you. And when we celebrate things like this, and when we look at this great memorial, don't think about the wars, but think about the people that served and what they stood for. You know, wars are a terrible thing. I'm a warrior, and I'm an American fighting man, and I'm very proud of my 34 years doing that, and if I was called to service, I wouldn't hesitate to go again. But having said that, wars are terrible things, and they should be avoided if possible. But there's some times that you can't avoid them. That World War I didn't work. The war to end all wars. We've had several since then. Until this world can learn to live without war, well, we'll have more. But don't pay tribute to those wars. But the men and women, like we have listed here and are shown out here, that have served their country and what they stood for, and I think that they stood for peace, freedom, and justice for all. Peace, freedom, and justice for all. Well, thank you for letting me be part of this day with you. It's nice to come home and put the uniform on again and see old friends like, well, there's Arch Beck right there. Last time I saw him, I was striking out to one of his fastballs. But I hope you enjoy this monument. I'm very proud of it. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, General Nichols. I would like to introduce our Mayor, John McCrae, again, and he's going to make a special announcement right now.
Thanks, Mike. This is Veterans Day, but it is also a special Veterans Day because of the memorial and because we have General Nichols with us. It's my privilege as mayor to issue a proclamation to officially make this Veterans Day David L. Nichols Day. Whereas, General, would you stand up here, please? Right here. Oh.
They usually let me stand on the box.
I think that'd be appropriate. Whereas Lieutenant General David L. Nichols was born in Iola, Kansas, and graduated from Iola High School in 1952, and whereas Lieutenant General David L. Nichols has held positions in the Pentagon, was responsible for deploying the Ground-Launched Cruise Missile to Europe, served as Deputy Chief of Staff Plans and Chief of Staff Headquarters, United States Air Force in Europe, has served as the Air Force Principal Advisor to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and was Commander, Alaskan Air Command, Alaskan NORAD Region, and whereas David L. Nichols is a national security consultant who retired from the Air Force in July 1988 with 100 combat missions and 9,000 hours flying time, and whereas the 1995 Veterans Committee has named Lieutenant General David L. Nichols as Grand Marshal of the Veterans Day celebration, which will be held on November 11 to pay tribute to all veterans who are worthy and deserving of recognition. Now therefore, I, John McCrae, Mayor of the City of Iola, do hereby declare November 11, 1995 as David L. Nichols Day. Thank you, General.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll display this with honor. I would like to add that I'm very proud of being a pretty good soda jerk, too.
Last night, about 9 o'clock, the wheels began to fall off this thing when the snow started coming in. And this morning, we couldn't keep the burners lit to make the beans, so there's going to be no bean feed. Our timing was a little off, but the time has come, committee. The time we've shot for a long time. We're going to turn this over to the county. But before we do, before I give it to Tom here, I think you ought to see what it looks like. We're going to unveil it, and when we do, we're going to have a mass choir standing right here. I hope they're all right here. If you people happen to get in there and you don't know what you're in, you're the mass choir. I want to see you singing. The mass choir is directed and organized by Fern Marsh. So at this time, we will now unveil the memorial.
Why is he the glory
There's one group I forgot to introduce today, and this is the Naval Reserve Training Center from Parsons and the Sea Cadets from there. And they're going to be in the parade. Let's give them all a big hand, especially the Navy. Okay, Tom. Tom, on behalf of the Veterans Memorial Committee, I hereby present this memorial to the County of Allen.
Thank you, Dennis. Pleasure to be here today representing Allen County along with Dick Works, Gene Barber, and Bob Husky. I don't think he's here today. After all, he did have a severe stroke in July. He finally had to give it up. I know he didn't want to. That time comes for all of us when we have to say that's it. And also, it means quite a bit to me. The mayor over here, his father just passed away. Well, I had a brother, of course, like that fortunate. He passed away August the 4th, 1942, in a bombing raid in the South Pacific. He was bombardier on a run. And the Japanese plane, I understand, crashed into his plane, and down they went. In a way, he was fortunate. He didn't become a prisoner of the Japanese, who I understand were quite barbarous in the way they treated their prisoners. Also, I'd like to dedicate this memorial to the mothers and fathers of our veterans, and especially the ones who paid the sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. The last thing on our program, and I'm not going to introduce it, I'm going to let Lloyd do it himself, and I'm sure that we all feel what this song says.
As I prepare to sing the song, I would ask that it touch your heart, not because I'm singing it, but because I'm an instrument for the Lord. But I'm so thankful for a father like C.A. Houck that believed not only in God, but he believed in country, and he wasn't afraid to show it. And I believe that's what we've got to do in America. We've got to be brave and show that we still love America. And we're not afraid to stand up and say we believe for God and country. The name of this song is, the name of this song is Let There Be Peace on Earth, and Let It Begin With Me.
begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me, so that we may all live in perfect harmony.
Well, that brings us to a close for this. There'll be a parade at 2 o'clock, and be here at 2 o'clock if you're watching. Be here at 1:30 if you're in the parade. And I'd like to encourage all veterans to join in at the end of the parade. We've got a truck for those who need a little help, and for the others, we just walk around and let everyone applaud you. You've deserved it for a long time. Thank you for all coming.